Hello everyone and welcome to the Williamson County Sports Connection. I'm Jack Daniels, your host, and with me for our first session of today's show is the head wrestling coach at Independence High School, Coach Jared Grindstaff. Coach, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, let's start with you, where you grew up at and where you went to school, the different sports you played, and all the different places you've been teaching and coaching.
Sure. I originally grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, transplanted down here. Kind of a funny story a little bit with that. I've got three older brothers. We all played sports throughout the high school, very competitive, very athletic family growing up, constantly wanting to outdo the older brother because I'm the youngest of four, but the first brother moved to Tennessee for grad school, then the second brother followed, the third brother followed, and so I finally followed down here as well. So that's how I got my start down here. Wrestling coach, like you said, at Independence. Started wrestling when I was 5 years old. So it's 26 years now in a row I've been doing wrestling, so I guess that dates me as well. But either way, so been doing it ever since I was 5, and it's just something I never really had a real passion for until I started coaching. But that's you hear that from a lot of coaches. You get into it and you start learning the sport more. My passion grew even more. I mean, I always loved the sport, things like that. But so it was just kind of natural. I wanted to coach and coach wrestling, but growing up, played all sports just like any kid, but played golf in high school as well, wrestled in high school, wrestled in college. I went to Cumberland University over in Lebanon, Tennessee.
Okay.
That's how I got to this area. That's where I decided to go and wrestle there. Spent my undergraduate there and my master's, and then went into education. Actually coached at Hunter's Lane and taught there for 1 year. The position came open at Independence, and I applied and got the job.
You've been there how long?
This is my 6th year at Independence.
Okay.
So, and 7th year teaching overall.
Are you married, Coach?
I am. Recently just had our first child,
Oh, congratulations.
which is great. Thank you very much. Cora Lee Grindstaff, named after our grandmother. I've been married now for, I guess this summer will be 4 years. So, met her at Independence. She teaches at Independence. We met there. Luckily, we don't have any policies against that. Met her there, and we fell in love and got married.
Oh, good. Now, was she raised in a family where her dad might have been a coach, or is she ready for what goes on being married to a coach? Because I can tell you right now, my wife, she's a coaching widow when I was in football.
Sure.
Now. How did she adjust to that kind of?
It's strange because me and my brothers, we were all athletic based.
Yeah.
Her family, which her family's phenomenal. I mean, there are wonderful people, and a lot of people in the community know the McGinleys, and that's my wife's maiden name. They're just wonderful people, but they're more music oriented.
Okay.
So that's quite different. Elizabeth, which is my wife, she was a bit different. Her siblings were band, music, that type. Her sister was a theater major at New York University, things like that. But my wife was a cheerleader in high school, so she had that aspect. But her siblings weren't. They played some sports growing up. They did swimming, some other things like that. But, Elizabeth had a cheerleading and gymnastics focus, and she's actually the cheerleading coach in Independence. So she understands the coaching aspect, and she is phenomenal with understanding what time commitment I have to put in, and she's, great with that. This year's been extremely tough. She's done awesome with it, but we had our first child right before wrestling, and so I've been around as much as I can, but we all understand coaching. I'm not around, Cora, our daughter, as much as I would like to be.
Right.
But she's definitely very understanding. She's extremely supportive. She's at every wrestling event. She's right there with us. But she understands. She's cheering for the kids. She yells just as loud as some of the parents. So. She comes from a great family as well. So,
well, Coach, tell us some about your assistant coaches that help you. Do you have some assistants?
We do. Coaches? We have two assistants. We have Clark Ramey, who is a student support teacher at Independence. He's been with us for 3 years. He grew up in Ohio. He wrestled a couple years in high school. When he started at the school, I just kind of approached him. I asked him where he was from. He said Ohio, and I was happy about that. Ohio's a big wrestling state.
Sure.
Started asking him what he did in high school. He mentioned he had some wrestling experience. So I was like, perfect. Somebody in the building to help coach, and it's worked out great. He's really developed in our system with coaching. He was straight out of college. He never really had any coaching experience, but he's learning the ropes as he goes, and he's getting better every year, just as the athletes, even myself. I hope that I'm getting to be a better coach every year. He's definitely getting better every year. And then we have a retired volunteer that helps us, Bill Godfrey. He used to coach in Pennsylvania, which is a huge wrestling state.
Sure.
He coached up there for 20 plus years, so he's a great addition to the team as well. So those are our coaches, and my brother has helped us over the years. I've got two brothers that live in the Nashville area. One of them had coached for the past couple years, and this year he wasn't able to help as much as he wanted because he's a professor at Cumberland, and his schedule just hasn't really allowed him to help that much this year. But we've got some help there, which is great. You know, it's not just me, and you know, I'm very happy with the coaching staff that we have.
Right. Well, at this present time of the taping of this show, we know the season has already been completed a couple of weeks ago, and can just kind of go back and give us an overview of how this 2012-2013 season went for the indie wrestling.
Yeah, it was one of our most challenging years out of my 6 years that I've had. We actually started out and we were, according to others in the state, pretty bad. We were losing to teams we never lost to. We didn't have a good record. I think at one point we were 7-7. You know, a lot of years we've only lost 4 or 5, and we started out the year 7-7, and so that was 7 duels for those people that don't understand how the wrestling. You know, we were 7-7. You know, and we weren't even ranked in the top 50. You know, everybody had counted us out. You know, but we were banged up. We didn't have kids in the weight class they needed to be. We had a lot of young kids, but we also had a lot of old kids. It was half and half. It was half seniors, half freshmen, and there really wasn't much in between. It was a very unique season. You know, and our kids got so much better as the season went on. By the time we hit region and district matches, you know, the first one that we had, you know, the first team that we wrestled, we weren't supposed to beat anywhere close, and we knocked them off. And then people were like, all right, well, that was probably a fluke. 2 days later, we turn around and beat the next team that's ranked in the top 20, both teams were, you know, beat the next ranked team the next week. And people were like, all right, you know, maybe Independence is getting back to where they're supposed to be. And then, you know, we turn around and we were supposed to finish 5th in our district. We finished runner-up to Ravenwood, and they're pretty elite right now in Williamson County and even the state with wrestling. You know, we couldn't quite get to them, but we made it out of the district, and then we went to region, and we had the #1 team from the other region, and we beat them, and then we had Ravenwood again and lost to them, but we made it to state duels, which was huge because only the top 16, 2 from each region make it, and we weren't even supposed to be the top 50 at that one point. We make state duels, and we finished top 6 in the state. So, I mean, we had a great season in that aspect. You know, there's always room for improvement. You know, I am very tough on the kids, you know, with trying to get the most out of them. You know, but we had a great year with the team aspect. On the individual side, you know, we left a couple matches out there at the state tournament. We left, you know, a couple kids at home that probably should have went to the individual state tournament. But overall, I think we did well with what we had, with what we started with. I think we had a good year.
Do you have any medal winners in the individual?
We did. We had 2.
Okay.
We had Riley Wilson, who got 4th, and he's definitely probably one of our most improved. He didn't even go to state last year. He's a senior, and this year he qualifies for state. Wasn't ranked once during the entire year, never even mentioned, and he ends up getting 4th, which was huge. That was a huge accomplishment. He wrestled 164th. Then we had our 132-pounder Robbie Allen, ended up getting 5th, and that's a great story with him because he didn't start wrestling until his freshman year, and wrestling is very technical. You know, with knowing how to do this, you know, you don't run into too many kids that play on the basketball team that didn't start until their freshman year. You get some, you know, but it's tough, and you know that goes with any sport. So he went from he's only a junior, so in 2 full seasons and a half season, you know, of wrestling, he ends up getting a state medal. So that's huge. That's awesome. You know, and he's only a junior. He's coming back, but for only just a couple years wrestling, and he's in one of the smaller weight classes too, where there's all the, you know, wrestlers are generally small, and that's where a lot of the experienced wrestlers are in those weight classes. And so for him to get a state medal, that was huge, and that was a, you know, great success story for us. I think he was a kid that throughout his first 2 years he had 45 wins, and then this year alone he had 45 wins. So I mean he equaled his win total from 2 seasons. So.
You've been mentioning weight classes. If you don't mind, Coach, would you kind of go over what weight classes they are? How many weight classes are there in high school?
Yeah, with wrestling in high school, and it's a little different for college, but with high school wrestling, there's 14 weight classes. They go as low as 106, and they go as high as heavyweight, but it caps out at 285. So if you fall anywhere between 106 and 285, you can wrestle. And that's one of the beauties about wrestling. It doesn't matter what your size is. You can, if you're a small kid, we've got a spot for you. If you're a big kid, we've got a spot for you. Anybody can do it. It doesn't matter if you're tall, skinny, wide, whatever. It doesn't matter. There's always an opportunity for wrestling. That's one of the reasons I love the sport so much. But we've got the 14 weight classes. So there's 106, 113, 120, 26, 132, 138, 145, 152, 160, 170, 182, 195, 220, and the heavyweight, which caps out at 285. So, I mean, right in there, I mean, you can fit anybody in there. And that's, a great thing about the sport.
So at 220, anything above 220, then you can go all the way up to 285.
Correct.
So those guys may be going against guys 60, 70 pounds.
So if you weigh about 225, you might want to think about
trying to lose a little.
Yeah, but if you're that big, 5 pounds probably isn't going to matter. To that much. But we had our 220 pounder this year. He always starts the season about 132, so he's about 12 pounds overweight.
Right.
But he comes out from football, and when when you're at football, you want to be as big as possible. When you get to wrestling and you're practicing for 2 hours straight every day, it's a little bit different. You lose weight pretty easily. So when he started at 232 pounds and goes down to 220, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just kind of a matter of getting his body into wrestling shape. You kind of trim the fat a little bit. And just get a little leaner. So,
Coach, you consider yourself a defensive type coach or an offensive type coach? In other words, kids, when they're out there and you're on your feet in the starting position, is your guys going to be trying for the takedown or trying to defend the takedown?
It's kind of funny because with me, I was never an offensive wrestler.
Okay.
I was, but I'm an offensive coach. That's all I preach. And I get very upset when we're not.
Okay.
I tried to, when I wrestled, I did it for so long, I kind of just went through the motions, and I kind of kicked myself for that daily. And I talk to my kids all the time, don't just go through the motions. You're never going to be as good as you could have been. And you don't want to go back and say, man, I wish I would have worked harder in high school or worked harder in college. Unfortunately, I'm one of those stories. I wish I would have put more into it. But I've been doing it for so long, I just went through the motions. So the roundabout here, when I wrestled in college and in high school, all I can ever remember is I just wanted to control the match. I wanted to counter. I wanted to keep it low scoring. If I had a 1-point lead, I wasn't going to lose that 1-point lead. I just wasn't. If I had a 2-point lead, I felt like I was in heaven. There's no way I can blow a 2-point lead. And the way our coaching style is, we want to break the person mentally. The person, because wrestling is a little war. We want to break them mentally by score as many points as possible, because if we jump out to a 5-point lead, that's tough to dig out of. And if we add on to that, now we're up by 7, that person's going to start to break mentally. They're going to start to think, all right, I've lost. Yeah. We don't, I don't know, it sounds kind of harsh, I guess, but we're not physically doing anything. But it's, we're trying to get our wrestlers to be offensive as possible, get as many points, so in case we mess up, we've got still that cushion of it. But 100%, we're go offensive as much as we can.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you being with me today. Time's gone by quickly, but we'll get you back next year for the show at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
Thank you for joining us for our first segment. Stay tuned for our second segment.
Have you recently moved to our school system and your child is nervous about making friends at his new school? It can be tough to adjust to a new school, but you can help your child make new friends by teaching him some simple strategies just for joining a group. First of all, teach your child to watch the group and notice what they're doing before trying to join in. Make sure he understands how important it is to watch his own body language and to be sure that he is open and friendly and approachable. Also, you can teach him to think ahead and plan what he's going to say. Help him understand that it's a good idea to ask to join the group and not just stand off to the side and wait for them to ask him. He can find common interests to talk about by asking questions that encourage other children to talk about things that interest them. And finally, it's very important to teach your child to look others in the eye when he is speaking to them, because it is such a sign of respect. Helping your child with these social skills will help him make those great friends that will last him a lifetime. And by the way, if you're new to Williamson County, welcome. You've moved to a great place where you and your child can make some lifetime friends. Remember, stay connected. You're the vital link in your child's school success. I'm Joan Tidwell, and this is Parent Connection.
Hello again, and welcome back to the second segment of the Williamson County Sports Connection. With me is the head bowling coach at Independence High School, Donna Henderson. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with you and just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and where you went to school, and all the different schools you've been teaching and coaching at.
All right. I grew up in Canada. I'm Canadian, and moved here with my husband and children about 11 years ago, and took a couple years off, and then I taught at some private schools in the area, and then started substituting at Independence. Really liked that school, and that's where I ended up teaching. So I've been at Independence for 5 years now, and 4 of those years I've been coaching bowling. Okay,
now so what do you teach out there at Independence?
I've taught biology, anatomy, but I'm teaching all chemistry right now.
Okay, so you're in the science department.
In the science department.
So how did you get from being a science teacher into being the bowling coach out there?
Well, it's a funny story.
Did you bowl in high school?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. We didn't have bowling in high school.
All right.
So, but it is one of the fastest growing sports at the high school level.
Okay.
My neighbor, our neighbor, came down and said to my husband and I, "Do you want to join a bowling league?" And I looked at my husband and said, "Oh, I guess, you know, we don't know a lot of people here. Sure, let's try it." So we joined with our neighbors. This was 10 years ago. Started bowling, and my first summer after I'd been teaching at Independence, I taught for half a year. An email came up that they were looking for a bowling coach. And I looked at my husband and I said, well, I would know how to do that because I do know how to bowl and I would be able to instruct the kids, and I feel like I have some knowledge in that. And so that's what we did. I talked to Kurt Jones, our athletic director at the time, and let him know that I would be interested in doing that. And that's how that started.
Well, Coach, I'm going to put you on the spot here now.
Okay.
What's your high game that you've ever bowled?
I just bowled that last week. I bowled a 210.
Oh, okay, 210.
Yeah.
Well, that's excellent. I haven't bowled in years, so I don't know if I could get the ball down there without going to the gutters right or left, but I'm sure some of your students are pretty good bowlers because you guys
Very good.
are pretty successful here with the different plaques you have sitting on the table here. So let's talk a little bit about this last season. I know it just finished up back in January.
Yes.
So kind of go back and recap the season for us.
All right. This was a premier season for us. I mean, I definitely was looking forward to this season. We have 7 seniors on the team. So, and 5 of those I've had since they were freshmen. So all 4 years I've been coaching, they've come up through the ranks, and I have some very dedicated bowlers. And that's like any sport, those who are dedicated, who practice, who are trying to get better, you know, and these kids are out there 5 and 6 days a week bowling, and that's going to improve your skills.
Sure.
Most of them, a number of them have private coaches, you know. They would carry 3 or 4 or 5 balls. So yeah, and people think of bowling as just, hey, you just throw a ball down the lane. It is a sport, which we clearly found out when we went to state. The oil patterns make a huge difference. So my team captain for the boys is...
You're going to back up here. Let's
sorry.
explain oil
patterns.
Yeah, explain that to me now.
They take a machine, they run it down the lanes, and it lays oil down.
Okay.
And for your average bowler, wouldn't mean squat to them.
Yeah, I'm a straight liner now.
Right, and I'm actually a straight line bowler as well.
Okay.
Straight line bowler's not as affected by oil. The harder you throw it, the less you're affected by the oil, traditionally. Okay. Most of your finesse bowlers are going to throw a curveball. It's going to come out to the edge, towards the edge of the lane, and come back in. You're going to hit in what's called the pocket, which is the sweet spot, to get more strikes. And the consistency is more there. Okay. And there's most of your bowlers that are in the higher echelon are bowling that kind of ball. And when you get an oil pattern on there, like they laid at state this year for the second round, there's something called reverse oil, and it'll actually grab the ball and change the trajectory of the ball. So, there's where your skill level comes in. How am I going to throw that ball differently? Can I pick up where that ball's going and how to change that and how to go past that? And it definitely favors certain bowlers, those throwing a harder ball, And if you've ever bowled at our local bowling alley, you can see the speed come up.
Sure.
And so, you know, you can throw at 13, 14, 15 miles an hour. And those speeds actually make a big difference where your ball's going as well.
Well, let's talk about some of your players then who had some success this year for you.
All right. I had 4 bowlers go to state this year.
Okay.
Which is a huge accomplishment.
Are you talking about all boys, all girls?
I had 2 boys and 2 girls.
2 boys, 2 girls.
From our district, which there were, I want to say, I think 11 teams this year.
Okay.
They send 8 bowlers total, 4 boys and 4 girls, and of those we had 4 of them. So that was a highly successful season.
Sure.
And actually, I had a 3rd girl and a 3rd boy who were right there. They just missed it by a little bit. So obviously going to be a good season for us. Courtney Marker, my girls team captain, she had a 190 average this year, and is actually going to be signing a scholarship with a college in or university in Kentucky, I believe.
So a lot of colleges are picking up bowling now?
Yeah, and I just got an email from the coach at Cumberland's University. They just started a brand new bowling program. It's really growing.
Yeah.
My second girl, Shannon Smith, she went to state as well with a 181 average for the season, and she's going to be signing at Martin Methodist for a scholarship as well.
Wow.
So yeah, very successful there. My 2 top guys are actually brothers. Blake Connolly was a 204 and Brock Connolly with a 205. So, and these are people, like my girls bowled all 27 matches.
Right.
So that's a lot of.
Have you ever had one roll the perfect game, 300?
We have not. We have not. We've been close a few times. Justin Hale, one of my seniors, in regionals actually bowled a 276. Which sounds like a long way from 300, but basically he had 1 spare in, I think, the 8th or 9th frame, and that'll knock you way down. Yep. Yeah. That takes that many pins off.
Yeah. So if you had it in the 10th at the last row, then you could get 299.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Wow, that's interesting. So as far as where do they do the state meet at? Is that around here in Middle Tennessee?
Smyrna.
It's
in Smyrna, yes.
Is it there every year?
It has been the 4 years that we've been, that I've been coaching.
Right. So who are some of the local teams in our area? I know most of our schools probably have bowling teams.
Yeah, you have Brentwood. Actually, I don't think Brentwood had a girls team this year, but you have Centennial. Our district includes some people from Davidson. Like Overton has typically been quite the competition for us. Last year, our boys beat them in district championships, which was a huge upset for us. We'd never beaten them. And they're a very, very strong team every single year. Brentwood boys team this year has a young gentleman, Cameron Doyle, who's actually been on the tour. So he's a freshman, so he's going to be someone to watch for coming up.
When you say on the tour, are we talking about?
Like the bowling, he's actually bowled outside, like for money. But of course he gets scholarship money so that he can still bowl. Okay. So I just wanted to point out Blake, one of my bowlers, he actually beat him. Okay. So it was a proud moment for him.
Right, right. So it doesn't take away from his amateur status when he goes out and bowls on the tour.
No, he's bowling in amateur, and as long as he's not getting cash money, I believe it's they get scholarship money.
Okay.
So.
Wow. That's awesome. Well,
but that's giving them more.
Coach, you got quite a bit of hardware here on the table. Talk a little bit about some of this hardware.
All right. Well, these lovely ones here, these two. If I can get it up off the table here. These would be. There
we go.
District championship, and we actually were undefeated, both teams, boys and girls, in our district, and that's playing, Franklin, Centennial, Overton, Hillsborough. That's quite a.
You said there's 11 teams in your district?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And so we were undefeated. We won all the way through to districts, won the championship, which gives us the ability to go to regionals. Regionals is held out at Hermitage Lanes every year. And my girls have actually gone all 4 years. The boys, this was only their second time going. And they did very well. The girls have never made it past the second round.
Okay.
Well, this year, that's where this one comes from.
All right.
They won. And they beat Wilson Central, which was a huge feat for us. We've never beaten Wilson Central.
Okay.
the boys and the girls both beat Wilson Central. And
Okay.
then the boys were runner-up at regionals, the girls won. So we both got to go to sectionals, which is the next step, and that's to earn the right to go to state.
Okay.
And we didn't get out of the sectionals, but
Okay, let's go back to a regular season match.
Mm-hmm.
How many actually bowl?
6.
All right, 6 for the girls and 6 for the boys.
That's correct.
Are going to be one. Do all 6 scores count
Yes.
as far as the competition goes?
They all 6 bowlers will bowl, and that's
Okay.
one game. You play
Okay.
3 games in a match,
All right.
and they bowl head to head. That means that if you bowl a 150 and I bowl a 160, I win that point.
Okay, so you got to match up your number 1 bowler versus Brentwood's number 1 bowler.
That's correct.
And it's just a head-to-head with those 2 people.
That's right.
As they go forward in the match.
Correct.
So it's not a total number of pins that Independence gets.
That also does matter.
That does matter.
That's additional points. So you get 6 points for going head to head, each one of those. And then there's an additional 2 points per game that goes to the team that gets the most points. And you can win on points. And a lot of times it does come down to points.
Do you ever tie? I mean, like
Yes.
if I bowl 200 and he bowls 200?
Yes. That happened to us this time in districts, I believe it was, for the first time ever, where the boys, I had 3 boys tie. Never had that happen before. So where they just bowled exactly the same.
So you said you had, I think, 7 seniors on this year's
7
squad?
seniors, yes.
Is that like 4 boys and 3 girls, or I mean, how does that break up for you? As far as
It's 4 and 3. 4
and 3.
girls and 3 boys.
So you have a lot of kids coming back for this next season?
I do have a number of them coming back, looking to obviously recruit some freshmen. It's nice to have that freshman crop come in and be able to teach them how to bowl. 2 years ago, we had 42 kids try out.
Oh, I was going to ask you about tryouts, and
Yeah.
then how many do you keep?
And then, well, I used to keep 10 per team.
Okay.
And then what we were finding is, well, as our team has improved, I haven't been able to get all those bowlers in.
Okay.
So what I've been doing this year, I kept 9 boys, and I actually had 7 girls. I lost 1 to injury right at the end, right before the season. So
Okay.
I like to have a couple of extras in case that kind of thing happens. So I'm typically going to carry 8 to 9 for now, so that they can have a little bit more play time.
Do they get a chance to bowl too while the others are bowling in competition in the regular season?
Depending on the alley, yes.
Depending on where you go to.
Right.
And we use probably the alleys in Franklin. That's the only ones I know of
Franklin
in our
Lanes
area.
would be our home lane.
Okay.
And they allow us to practice there once a week, and we also have matches there. And then the kids they go in practice, and high school bowlers, they give them a card so they can bowl discounted,
that's good.
outside of school.
Right.
But for a nominal fee, they allow us to bowl there all season,
Okay.
which is great.
Right. So, Coach, as far as when we got to the state, do you have any individual finishers to get medals or anything like that?
I thought the top 12 went on because I hadn't been to
Okay.
state before.
Right.
You know, you kind of learn as you go along.
Right.
It's actually the top 6 that go on. But
Okay.
Shannon Smith actually placed 12th, so in the top 12. And the girls, they did very well. That was Courtney Marker's 3rd time at state, and Shannon Smith's
Right.
2nd time. First time we've had guys.
Okay.
So really looking forward to sending a couple more next year.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
And congratulations on a great year that your
Thank you.
team had, representing not only Independence High School, but Williamson County. And best of luck next year with your team.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, this concludes our second segment. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jack Daniels, your host.
My book is named The Chocolate Touch. The thing I like about this book is because it tells about a boy who gets a chocolate. Everything he touched turns to chocolate. It's a really good book. Amazing.
Blueberry crate.